know if you get this a lot in the fairy tale land that is the Kingdom of Texas, but like the other day, my neighbor tried to like break out his lawnmower and start like working on like being outside and yard work. And this morning was just frost. It was frosty. It was like in the 20s temperature wise. Like the fall spring is very, very real. And I don't understand why people don't understand that concept anymore. It's like you can't just get a couple of good, nice days in March and expect like, oh, it's going to be sunshine and roses from here on out, right? Because guess what? It's going to snow in April, whether you like it or not.
It doesn't really snow here.
When it does, it shuts down your whole state.
Yeah, well, when it floods there, it shuts down your whole state.
But it doesn't flood here.
But when it does,
I'm trying to like imagine a flooding event. I would like to think that Michigan knows how to deal with its water, considering they're surrounded by it.
there was a little part of Detroit that literally flooded and then immediately froze. I don't want to hear it.
That was fake news. I don't remember that story.
That was like this year.
I'm going to choose not to believe that happened, and the culture on the internet sustains that, like, if I believe that it doesn't happen, then it doesn't really happen. So I don't know what to tell you. That's not how this works.
This works.
Anyway, I believe that it's another week of taps. I'm Drew.
I'm sleepy.
And didn't you just come out with a movie recently?
No.
No, you weren't one of the 7 dwarves and
unauthorized biography about my life.
So you're not getting any royalties out of that? You're not just like,
no.
That's a bummer, man.
Sure I got a job. I got 2 jobs actually.
Oh, 2 jobs?
Yeah.
What are you doing for money these days?
Well, I'm gonna start working at my gym soon.
There you go.
But I'm also waiting tables at a breakfast spot that opens at 7:00 in the morning.
There you go. So you got like brekkie in the morning and then get your gains on afterwards. Like, that's not bad.
Yeah, but I'm somebody who's used to like waking up super like late in the morning because I don't have to be at work until 9:30. So 3 hours earlier than that is like detrimental to my life.
That's why you're so sleepy. Okay, things are starting to make sense now, kind of. But yeah, you better wake up right about now because we got just a smorgasbord of playoff races coming your way. We already got teams that are clinching. We already have a team that's eliminated, that's been eliminated since November, but there's a lot that's going on right now in these next couple of weeks, and we're glad to have you along for the ride. Should we just like get the primer up and just get going? It's like we got to cover like what has happened and what's going to happen. We should do that.
Hit the ground.
You are just like I love your everything about your vibe right now. So for those following along, you can kind of see if your team is kind of in that shaded section, whether it's blue or red. I'm looking at Hershey, Charlotte, Wilkes-Barre, Texas, Milwaukee, and Colorado as of last night. You guys are going dancing in the Calder Cup Playoffs. I feel like we're clearly going to add a couple more teams that like they know they are, but it's just a matter of math. And then we got some other teams that are like in the thick of the race that are fighting for their lives, and we'll talk about all that. But yeah, I'm not shocked that there hasn't, like, in the North, everyone is still technically alive, right? Like, that's a little kind of wild, and the same thing for the most part in the Pacific. Like, only Colorado's clinched for the time being. I don't know if that's, like, a symbol of chaos or what, because in the Central, it's which has been kind of a little more chaotic, I would say, in terms of just, like, no one is really kind of, like, reaching out and taking the Central. I've said before how I don't wanna say that they're kinda booty, but they're kind of like Texas and Milwaukee, even the top 2 teams in the division, go out and play other teams out of their division and get caved in. Grand
It's
Rapids is falling apart. It's just
it's a weak division
a
right
weak
now, and it
it's
historically hasn't been, but it is for some reason right now entirely collapsing in on itself.
Mhm.
Probably because the Pacific has too many teams.
I know. Well, until my petition to include Colorado, which is kind of like, could you imagine if Colorado was in the Central this year? They would be like 55 and like 3 or whatever, however many games played they're actually at. No, Colorado would probably have already run away with the division for a long time now, but
Yeah, they would have been like mathematically clinched the playoffs in like November.
yeah, not to mention that I mean, that's a really tough division over there in the Pacific, and they're already like, they're while they haven't clinched yet. I mean, you just take a look at their. I'm trying the math real quick in my head. 8 points ahead of Ontario. And they have a magic number to clinch that division of 13. So right now, kind of in the driver's seat of taking that number 1 seed out west, and uh, I don't really see Ontario or I mean Abbotsford is absolutely on fire. As of recently, I believe they've won 7 straight games, which, like, go off Abby Canucks, best logo and best vibe and, like, aesthetically looking in the league, but, um, the games aren't played with aesthetics, they're played with hockey players, and, Colorado's got them beat just kind of pretty much in all 3 areas on that one, so a lot of hockey that's still got to be played, obviously, but I like the Eagles to just kind of take home that number 1 from here on out.
I mean, mathematically, it's the most likely thing.
Right. I'm not really a numbers guy, but the numbers are telling me that this is what's gonna happen. So, um, bet on it, I guess. I'm not a betting man either, but I would assume the line is pretty in favor of the Eagles on that one.
Yeah.
Look at Calgary, though. The Wranglers were in first for how long? All year, almost. I mean, the last month and change, they've kind of stumbled, and by stumbled, I mean like fell right on their face. And now, okay, like they're kind of ahead of Tucson, comfortably, kind of. But if they're not going to get any points, are they really that comfortably ahead of them? It's been ugly. It's been really ugly for the Wranglers.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like so. What's the word? Antithetical. There it is.
That's a
To
good word.
I was a writer once upon a time. To their identity that we're so used to seeing. Just seeing them struggle. And it's not like they've just only been playing Colorado. They have been playing like weaker opponents and still struggling. So
Yeah, I understand kind of everyone kind of getting gutted, getting pulled up to the flames and all that. Like, I sympathize with that, especially as someone that's on the Griffins beat of what the Red Wings have decided to do with this team. But um, no one's really going to feel sorry for Calgary, especially all the teams that were trailing them. all season, earlier at least the first half of the season, were getting caved in by the Wranglers. Like, yeah, this is their opportunity to kind of push them further and further and further down the standings. They're gonna take that, and
yeah, especially the Cuda. Look at those guys go.
yeah, I'm absolutely stoked to kind of see the Cuda like back in that playoff picture. They were down at the bottom of the bucket for so long. The Cuda were okay, they weren't Bridgeport bad last year, but they were Manitoba or Iowa bad. You know,
They were not
they were bad.
They were
very not good.
They were not even going out there and putting on a respectable effort. But
Exactly.
their motto this season has apparently been just keep swimming. That's what they're doing.
That and give the puck to Andrew Podorowski, and he will do magical things as he's known to do.
Yeah, they made something. I said, I feel like we talked about them having made the smartest off-season changes, and look at them now. We're so proud of you, Cuda.
Yep. And I think it's certainly a symptom of San Jose's. I'm talking about the Sharks here. Their bigger focus to, the whole organization was kind of in the dumps, right? So the last place team in the NHL, so the last place team in the AHL, and you wanna get that pipeline going. So you got to kind of like open the valves, help out your minor league team, get those young guys in an environment where they're playing winning hockey, and then that pipeline is going to keep moving on down right down the street, and hopefully you'll see some brighter changes. I think you're already seeing better changes in with the Sharks, not really on the scoreboard because at the end of the day it's still not very good roster, but you're seeing a better effort out of them night in and night out, and at that point it's really kind of all you can ask for in the situation that team's in.
I think it's just because they refuse to let Calabrini Bedard himself.
Thankfully, like, because I watched the Blackhawks because the NHL still has like hanging on to the idea of the Blackhawks from 10 years ago and what puts them on every single nationally televised game possible. And it's bad. It's just bad hockey, man. It's one thing to be bad, but like
you had a superstar first overall, like kid should have been lighting it up. Like he should have been what Calabrini and Hudson are. And the poor guy just like broke his spirit.
And he's still putting the points up there, but it's
now
he's not doing it with a smile on his face, that's for sure.
Right. Well, he's putting up the points now. He's struggling, I think, way more than we've seen most rookies and young players struggle for a long time. Him and Slafkowski both. Just like those are two like bright stars that kind of have really yet to find just like consistent footing. They should have gone to the AHL, but that's not what this episode's about.
We could do a whole another episode just on that. But speaking of Chicago and their young players, and should be in the AHL, but going up to Chicago, we got Rockford here in that 5th spot. I've been trying to like. I feel like I was almost gaslighted earlier in this season to think that Rockford was a better team than the sum of its parts, because like you had Artem Levshunov, who's number 2 overall pick. You had Kevin Korchinski, who's a 1st round pick. Frank Nazar is another youngster, and Landon Slaggert, and all of these young guys down in Rockford. And I was like, wow, I'm super excited to see them play down there. This is what I was talking about with that, like building that foundation down in the AHL that will eventually lead to success in the NHL. Chicago's like, yeah, buns to all of that. We're going to pull all of these guys up to Chicago and see if they sink or swim. And like, you see flashes of those guys with the Blackhawks. Levshunov, I know, had a good play the other day to make a goal for Nazar happen. And it's like, that's something you want to see there. But when you're getting caved in 5-2 every night, it's tough to see tangible progress. You'd figure you'd want to see those guys down in Rockford and help this team out. And it's just, it's not happening. And, Korchinski was down there for a while, and I get kind of pulling him up as there's only a couple games left in the season and see what you got out of the kid. But I'm still kind of perplexed by what that entire organization is doing with these players, man. They're not getting any rhythm. They're not, gaining any chemistry with each other. And it's just, it's not only just producing bad hockey in Chicago, but Rockford shouldn't be a 500 team. Like, I just don't, I think that they have the talent to be way better than that. And it's just, ugh.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where, only one of your teams in the organization is making the playoffs. Like, the other one doesn't even have really, like, a chance. Like, they're done. They are out of contention. I would, if it was me, right? Like, if I was in charge, I would maybe possibly just focus on the team that is going to make the playoffs.
Right.
But that's just me. What do I know?
It's been a tough season in Rockford, and like they just had a game against Chicago on Tuesday, was it? Tuesday. Started off with a 2-0 lead, like it was looking real good. Then Chicago came back and tied it up 2-2. Then a couple more goals from Jackson Cates. He had a hat trick, and I feel like it didn't really, like, no one remembers it because then Chicago came back and then Chicago won, and it's just kind of like, yay, Jackson Cates, like, he had a big game, but the team kind of pooped its pants. And that's kind of been the story of Rockford all season long, is that, like, you might have, like, some glimpses and some flashes, like Levshunov making a good play, and he's got a really good game here, and then the next two games is kind of like he looks a little lost. I'm not, like, disparaging the kid. He's a teenager playing defense in a professional league. It's going to be super difficult. I kind of thought that might have been better for him to go back to Michigan State this year, but Chicago saw it differently, and kid's immensely talented. You can see that just by the eye test. I wish they would kind of let him continue to cook in Rockford as opposed to, like, let's continue yo-yoing these kids up and down. Did they not learn their lesson with Lucas Reichel? I don't even know what that poor kid is even, if he's even,
like, what's he up to?
I have no idea, because I feel like he kept getting yo-yoed earlier on with Anders Sorensen. Then he gets called up to Chicago, and he's like, sweet, I'm free. And then they put Anders Sorensen back up in Chicago, and it's just been a nightmare. And Blackhawks fans have just been routinely been like, what is this guy doing? And I'm like, I saw this happening in Rockford for years, and now you're just watching it all come to fruition, and it's just a mess after a mess. And I've been watching the Red Wings for the last 10 years, so I know a mess when I see it. And it's, you have this golden goose in Bedard, and you're not gonna be a Stanley Cup contender anytime soon. That's just the nature of the beast and of this sport. So let the kids figure it out in Rockford. Don't, like, throw them right to the wolves. Well, not the Chicago ones. I'm talking about the ones in the National League. And
So technically still the Chicago ones.
Right, you can also do, it's also the Chicago ones. Yes. And speaking of the Chicago ones, I feel like I've done a good job of not, like, bringing up my bias in on this podcast. I've done good jobs of, like, reaching out and talking about about other teams. But while we're on the subject of the Central,
since we brought it up, since it came up naturally in conversation.
Like, have you checked out Bradly Nadeau lately? I have not talked about him enough on this podcast because I think like trying to just kind of shove it away because beat bias. Bradly Nadeau scored his 27th goal last night in overtime. He's currently leading all rookie goal scorers in the AHL. This kid doesn't even turn 20 until May. And here he is, tied for 5th in the league in goal scoring. You just don't normally see this out of teenagers. It's kind of freakish. You probably don't believe that it's even happening because most of his goals are assisted by Ryan Suzuki. So
they're not real and it's a league conspiracy. Got it.
We're all just kind of making this up as we're going type deal. But
yeah, they're trying to save the script,
But Bradly Nadeau is really, really good at hockey, and that's all I wanted to say. I'm not even going to say anything else about the Wolves if you don't want me to, but the kid's got an NHL shot, and I think it's tantamount to so Carolina can. Unlike Chicago, they don't need to pull Bradly Nadeau up because Carolina's got an actual competent NHL roster, and I get that, But they understand the importance also of let him work on his game, let him mature, let him round out, Okay, we all know about his
marinate. You gotta let it marinate before you cook it.
Right. I mean, God, wish it was getting warmer out, actually getting warmer out, because I would love to just make a tenderloin out on the grill, and it would just give me life, which I need because I can feel my soul wanting to break out of this seasonal depression so badly. And Michigan is just nope, it's just going to be 30 for the rest of your life. You're not going to be able to play golf. You're not going to be able to go outside and enjoy yourself. You're just going to be cold and gray forever. And not to get any existential or anything, but is that just what life is now? Cold forever.
Yeah, I think after you graduate from high school, you realize that the real world is actually nothing like you thought it would be.
You figured it out that early?
You didn't?
No, I still deluded myself for years after high school.
Really? The whole this is going to be important after you graduate and then you never used it again wasn't your first tip off?
Well, my first tip off was when my algebra teacher told me that I wasn't going to have a calculator in my pocket all the time. So I had to learn math, and then
you should have figured it out earlier then.
And then my phone, I was just oh, okay, what's figuring out your basic math equations there.
Yeah, so I don't think I've ever used MLA style since I graduated from high school, but thank you very much. Whatever my teachers' names were.
No, I'm not saying that I ever thought I was gonna need to know that mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, but
okay, so the mitochondria is not the powerhouse of the cell. The mitochondria is just where it's part of the mechanism of the Krebs cycle, which is what converts your usable adenosine triphosphate.
Did you rehearse that before this episode, or is that just something that you pulled freestyle out of your head?
The only thing I remember from AP Bio is the Krebs cycle. That's it.
Is it the Peyton Krebs cycle, or how does that tie in?
The Krebs cycle. It uses glycolysis and converts usable adenosine triphosphate, which is your cellular energy source. Comes from glucose, obviously. Yeah, I know that because creatine, when you use it as a fitness supplement, it helps recreate adenosine triphosphate from the used version of it, which is adenosine diphosphate, because it loses one phosphorus molecule in the process of becoming energy.
So you convinced yourself that you weren't going to use all of this information after high school, but yet here you are giving us the lecture on it all on a hockey podcast. Like, what? Maybe the world is sunnier than you and I would like to believe it.
Yeah, have you ever been outside in Texas in the summertime? It's sunny. It's kind of like
because I'm looking outside and it's gray and cold in Michigan.
I mean, to be fair, it has been storming today, but like it's usually sunny, except for when we have hurricanes.
Usually your like internet's getting cut off because you've got tornadoes rolling through. Like that's usually what happens.
Nuh-uh. That was only on my laptop and the one time that we had a tornado watch.
I seem to remember more than one incident of inclement weather, but I digress. We're
the governor said he fixed the power system. So
okay, if you want to speak about like some inclement weather, Thunderbirds. Like remember when they were the hottest team in the league? And
I vaguely recall.
So since then, they've lost 6 straight games, all in regulation.
Oh, I love that.
And the Hartford Wolfpack, famously under 500, are now just 4 points behind them.
Nice. That's fun.
Could you imagine losing out your playoff spot to a team that has a goal differential of negative 33?
Listen, I'd be okay with that as
I would love it.
Not a Thunderbirds fan because I'm so tired of them ruining everything for the East in the playoffs.
I would love it for the story that like okay, I'm just gonna like put a scenario in your head. You know, like Providence jumps up past Wilkes-Barre and gets into that 3rd seed, and they're like, yes, we got like a good home ice advantage. We got the lowest seeded team coming in, like easy peasy. We got new goalies, new vibes, new players. Like it's gonna be great. This is gonna be a new era of Bruins hockey. And then here comes the 6th seed Hartford Wolfpack with Dylan Garand coming to just steal their soul for the 3rd year in a row and just rip it out of them and yet another postseason disappointment. Like, I'm not saying that like the stage is starting to set up like that, but if that does happen, would we just call Providence cursed, or like how does that work?
I don't know. But I do know that if that does happen, I will finally watch that Hartford Wolfpack Lifetime movie. Hallmark movie.
I forgot about that. Why did you have to remind me that existed?
If that happens, we will both watch it.
We should have like a watch party on the pod.
You will be watching it along with us.
That sounds awful. And I 100% endorse that idea.
We might have to do that anyway.
If Hartford makes the playoffs, I will
watch the Hallmark movie with me. We're doing it. Hartford! You can
put that in writing. I mean, it's already on the podcast, so I'm already locked in. But yes, if I will torture myself to a Hallmark movie if the Wolfpack make it, which I'm not saying it could happen. Springfield does have 2 games in hand, and they're 4 points ahead. So even though they've lost 6 in a row, they're still very much in control of their own destiny. All they got to do is not ruin it, and they're not in Providence, so I think they got a good shot. Let's take a look.
Ooh, Springfield. Do you want to overthink it so bad?
Oh, well, you're already in trouble right off the bat because tonight and tomorrow,
Iowa.
Springfield's got Iowa.
You know what? Let's go Wild. You're so good at hockey. You came from the best place. You have such a long legacy and history of winning.
Are you delirious right now? Like, what's going on?
Bro, I might be. I started to work at a breakfast restaurant.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, get yourself a coffee or something. I've never heard you cheer for the Wild of all teams.
I'm not trying to. I'm not cheering for the Wild. I'm praying on Springfield's demise. There's a difference.
For the Wild.
No, you've got an identity. I'm not sure what it is, but you've got one. Play to it.
You know what Iowa's identity is?
Being
They're
thieves.
bad. Well, and being thieves of the greater Houston area of their I was gonna say greatest sports team, but the Rockets have been somewhat successful, right?
Yeah, the Houston Rockets are pretty
The
good.
basketball team, not the hockey team. It's the
Yeah.
hockey team in Laval is
I think
quite
the
successful.
Rockets. I think the Rockets have won a championship or something. I don't know. I don't follow basketball. The Houston Major League Rugby team has made the postseason and almost won it all last year, but they've made the postseason 3 years in a row, which coincidentally coincides with when I came back to town and started watching them. I'm not saying that I'm the reason, but you're welcome, Sabercats. The Oilers were pretty successful when they were here before they got sold all the way to Tennessee. And obviously, both of my Arrows iterations were successful, with the IHL, AHL Arrows having won IHL and AHL accolades, and the WHA Arrows being Gordie Howe. So,
yeah, not just Gordie Howe, but his kids too. So,
Mark
like,
and Marty.
exactly. That's a very good. That's a lot of hockey royalty for one team, let alone just like putting them all on a line. Like,
Are they the Howe line? I know.
a lot of history there in Houston. Not quite so much in Iowa, but they would have made history if it wasn't for Bridgeport.
Truly. Listen, we might get an NHL team, so you know what? Suck it, Iowa.
Yeah, I don't think Des Moines getting a professional. Not that the AHL is professional, but like top of the line professional NHL team anytime soon. So yeah, Houston still got that on
We might get the Arrows back, and then you'll never be able to use that logo ever again.
them. Or they'll just use a horrible rendition of it on their jerseys again.
Yeah, because you got to think that whoever gets an NHL team for Houston is going to buy back whatever marketing and licensing and stuff they possibly can, just to be able to wear the history of the city.
Mm-hmm.
So,
looking ahead this weekend, though, how about this doozy of a matchup? We got Wilkes-Barre and Charlotte going
like
up for
fun
number
little
2.
set.
Sounds like what?
A fun little set.
Absolutely, and especially when you consider that they're both tied with 80 points right now, and winner of this series, whoever comes out, unless they split, I guess, will come out with the number 2 seed in the Atlantic. And for those of you following along, with the 6 teams kind of coming out of the division, the first 2 teams, which as of right now are Hershey and Charlotte, would be getting byes to the first round of the playoffs, which means that this matchup is massive for both of these squads. Anytime you get a chance to rest and get some guys who might be a little banged up to sit out for a bit while everyone else kind of murders each other in the art that is playoff hockey, you take that any chance you get. And so that's going to make these matchups key, I think, and probably the ones to watch for the weekend. What's up?
Blessing and a curse, though, because there's so much on the line to play for, which means they're going to be playing harder, which means, you might see some injuries. But also, playing for that bye, you got to think that you probably weigh the pros and cons, right?
Right.
do I really want to sit around for however long it takes, to get everything sorted out and reseated and figured back out and shaken out and everything? Do I, or maybe do I want to just keep playing hockey so my guys can just, stay loose?
Yeah, sometimes that bye can hurt you, if you're there's a thing to momentum and continuing to roll through the games with the way and the style that you're playing. And that when you have that bye and you kind of got to just sit at home and watch and sit and wait and wish, it can throw you off sometimes. I've seen it in hockey and baseball and football. Hey, remember when the Lions had a first round bye? I don't. So momentum's a very real thing, and so I think at the end of the day, like it's crucial to get these points, but
right,
if you don't, it's not like a season killer unless you're Providence playing Hartford, but
right, like you're in, and like you definitely want to do whatever it takes. Like there is like that double-edged sword. There is advantage to being well rested, to being able to like nurse back any like soreness and aches and pains and like super minor injuries that you may have, but also like double-edged sword because now you're tired and there's a little bit of rust you have to shake off, and you've already got people who are angry about something and it doesn't even have anything to do with you. It has to do with whoever they played in the previous round,
Mm-hmm.
But again, the other edge of I guess it's a triple-edged sword because the other edge is you're going into all these matchups. Do you really want to be super banged up, fighting for seeding, or do you want to kind of take it easy and kind of be comfortable, not necessarily coast, but like be comfortable in your position in the standings and know, okay, well, we're in. All we have to do is keep our in, and then we don't have to like put our bodies so much on the line.
Right. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're playing Bridgeport or Hershey. Well,
okay, pick a different example because that is kind of mad.
I wanted to take more digs at Bridgeport. It doesn't matter if you're playing Hershey or Rockford in the first round. Like once you're in the playoffs, you play whoever's in front of you. It doesn't really matter. And you want to set yourself up for that best, the success in the games that matter the most in the postseason.
Right, or you want the more favorable matchup for sure. Like you want to be playing as low a seeded team as possible to advance, which I think is kind of silly. Honestly, me personally, just put them in a hat, put them in one of those little bingo hoppers that they love so much for the draft, and pull them out that way. You know what I mean? Like just let it go wild, because to me it's almost predictable, right? Like your highest seed is usually going to knock out the lower seed,
unless you're Providence,
which is why I think we also need to move to single elimination.
Can you imagine like the play-in round, just one game, winner take all?
Yeah, give me some single elimination, man. Like have 4 and 5 go up against 6 and 7. And if 6 or 7 can knock out 4 or 5, guess what? They are now 4 or 5. One game to prove everything that you've got. Prove your mettle right now.
I'm an agent of chaos, and even that might be a little too much chaos for me.
Nah. Could you imagine if Bridgeport manages to win one game and it gets them into the playoffs?
Not if it's at home.
It doesn't have to be at home. Okay, so the higher seed gets home.
All right.
All right, Bridgeport, you're in the playoffs with my plan. Let's be friends.
I'm pretty sure if you put Bridgeport into a playoff series against Hershey, like that constitutes some kind of war crime. Like that's not legal. There's got to be like
that's what I'm saying. Instead of being like 1 up against 6, right? Maybe it's like 1 and 2, and it's actually like 4-6. There's a little bit less of a gap. You know what I mean? Like make it crazy. You know what? Just do it within the conferences. Actually, we're gonna see the Bridgeport Islanders single elimination their way into the playoffs, only to defeat like the Marlies and move on.
Do you think that Bridgeport's won like 2 out of 3 games all season, like in any 3-game stretch?
They only have to win the one. It's single elimination now. They only have to win one.
I don't want to know what kind of dystopian world we live in where Bridgeport's moving on in the playoffs. I'm excited and also horrified at the same time.
Maybe they're just a really bad regular season team. We don't know. They could be incredible.
Just turn it on in the playoffs. They go from giving up 5 goals a game to just absolutely locking it down.
Just like only shutouts, like sweeps.
Henry Tikkanen becomes Martin Brodeur.
Imagine.
Well, I want to talk about some teams that are going to be making playoffs here. Bridgeport's got to play Rochester. Oh, that's going to be fun.
Imagine if that was single elimination and Bridgeport wins and they make it into the playoffs. That would be incredible.
There would not be any way where Bridgeport would be able to beat Rochester. Even if Bridgeport wins
together,
even if Bridgeport wins on Friday, even if they win, I would still say no. I believe more in Ryan Suzuki being a tangible human being than Bridgeport ever winning over Rochester. That would be a computer simulation if I ever seen one.
All right. Well, if Bridgeport beats Rochester, you owe me like cold hard cash.
Oh, okay. How much cash are you in here?
I don't know, like $20. That's a Taco Bell order.
That's a Taco Bell order?
Yeah.
How expensive are your Taco Bells in Texas?
Do what?
How expensive are your Taco Bells in Texas?
Okay, well, I get a Cantina chicken quesadilla with steak instead of chicken, 2 crunchy tacos with steak instead of beef, sour cream and red cabbage with the avocado ranch salsa thingy that they have on there now, and a 12 count of those little Cinnabon thingies.
Okay, so I all right. Now I'm starting to see you, especially when you put steak on the Cinnabons. Is that where it comes from?
No, you don't put steak on the Cinnabons.
Obviously, but you put steak on everything else. I was just wondering how many upcharges you guys.
If you guys want to know the Taco Bell hack, have you ever ordered Taco Bell through the drive-thru? You can't obviously eat a crunchy taco until you get home because they fall apart everywhere, right? But by the time you get home, it's 5 minutes away from your house, and somehow that taco is really soggy on the bottom, right? Do you want to know how to avoid that? You get steak instead of beef, and you no longer have soggy, crunchy tacos to deal with. This has been Taco Bell Tips with D.
Liv Moss.
Look, the good Lord BellGrande put me on this earth for one thing.
Baja Blast consumption?
Yeah, that and spreading the gospel
of the T-Bell. Look who Laval's got Toronto coming up tonight. Huh? I was actually kind of not shocked because I believe that Laval is probably the best of the bunch in the North, but the fact that they had kind of opened up such a wide lead into their number 1 spot up there. Yeah, if you look, their number to clinch the division at 17, while Rochester's at 29. I think the Rocket are going to have this one pretty much well wrapped up here pretty soon. Like,
I mean, they have to win one and go to overtime in another, and they're in. They got 2 games coming up, so they just need to win one and go to overtime in another, and then they're in.
Well, also if Belleville kind of poops the bed, then they win. They're in too, right? Because the magic number isn't just their points.
No, I'm saying perfect world though. You know what I mean? Like if everybody does well, kind of thing. Because like Belleville is up against Lehigh Valley. That's out of division. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like Utica, Syracuse, whatever. Right? And Utica's got Hershey a couple of times, right? Cleveland's got Texas. That's out of division. Right? Then we're going up against Laval, against Lehigh Valley, and then Manitoba after that. I mean, what Rochester has Bridgeport and then interdivision play. And then Toronto has 2 divisional games. And then, but a lot of it's out of division. You know what I mean? Or it's teams that like are consistently beating each other already. You know? So perfect world, everything shakes out. They only have to win one and tie another. But
and if you're looking at the matchups out of the division, you know, Cleveland going up against Texas, Central Division team, booty. Right. Even the best Central Division team still.
Right. It's some weak matchups in the North right now. It's a lot, like I said, it's a lot of divisional play, and then just like just weak extra divisional play. The Rocket also have obviously the number advantage to take the league. Hershey's obviously the closest, but even they still have quite a larger number, 4 points.
Yeah.
And that's obviously going to adjust through like the weekend and stuff. Mm-hmm. So they're slowly inching. Literally, Laval just has to get like 1 point. They just have to tie a game and they're in. And then, you know, everybody else just has to like fight down that stretch. And Laval still has like the best shot at the league.
Yeah, they have the smallest number to get that big old Z by their name.
Zed. They're in Canada.
There you go. That's fair. It's a Rush thing, right? Why Zed?
Yeah, they just say Zed because like England or whatever. I don't know.
Things that you didn't know you needed to know. As we take a look at the Central, we already talked about Cleveland and Texas going up there. Milwaukee's got a much, I would say, much easier matchup, but they have to travel out west to play Henderson.
That was just wild. They're gonna go from Milwaukee in March to the desert.
Nevada. Yeah. That's going to be kind of crazy.
Nevada, any point is like not it. But like, have you ever been to Nevada? Have you ever like driven in a car in Nevada? You know, you're chilling. It's like 100 and something degrees outside. You got your AC blasting. It is freezing in there. You feel like you are your own personal Baja Blast freeze from Taco Bell. Sponsored by Taco Bell. Not really. Sponsor us, Taco Bell. You're cold. You're like, this is great because this window's burning up for some reason. And then you step outside in Nevada and it's dry and it's hot and there's sand and it's rough and it's coarse and it's irritating and it gets everywhere. And you're like, that's what it's going to be like stepping off of that plane.
I'm sorry. I'm still trying to recover off the Anakin
Star Wars
bomb.
Episode 2, Attack of the Clones is my favorite Star Wars movie because it is so corny, because Anakin flirts by telling Padme he hates sand, then they get married in like the most beautiful place and she's wearing some really pretty dresses, and Naboo is apparently in Italy or something.
Croatia, I believe it is.
Yeah, I don't know. It's in
it's on the Mediterranean, I can tell you that much.
It's in the beautiful part of Europe. I love the Mediterranean.
Speaking of the beautiful part and the desert, Chicago is going to be, well, they've already been to Coachella Valley, but this time Coachella Valley is going to be bringing the desert to Chicago O'Hare International Airport and the adjacent hockey arena next to it. Which is like, this Chicago has played well in division, right? But it's this, the whole thing is Central Division just not playing well against other intradivisional opponents. They got just dog walked by Hershey and didn't look super hot against Texas, but then They play Rockford and Iowa and just put up a ton of goals against both of those squads. So now you got Coachella Valley here, a team that's been through the ringer the last couple of years, who knows, I mean, it's different personnel, absolutely, but this is a squad that comes to play every night. They've been near the top of the Pacific Division standings all season long. So it's another measuring stick game series for the Wolves, and you got to get some points because Rockford's not too far off, and they got Manitoba, which is just point farming there for the Ice Hogs. Hopefully, I mean, I've said before, I've always expected more out of Rockford this year, and they've just failed to deliver on seemingly every occasion. So we'll see if they can step their game up, or if they're just
if they can earn their midweek All-Star Classic. You know, you got to put in some work for that.
They never earned it. Let's be real. It's the Bedard effect, which doesn't make any sense because he never played in this.
He never went to the AHL. He totally should have gone to the AHL. But again, that's not this podcast.
Not this week's anyway. And then this chaos that is the Pacific Division.
Yeah,
oh
boy,
I thought we had a big one with Charlotte and Wilkes-Barre coming up. Colorado and Ontario 1 and 2 in the Pacific, and it's going to be in Ontario. So the second seeded Reign have a bit of an advantage there. They don't have to go up into the altitude in the mountains and all that. But like I said, Colorado's kind of pretty firmly ahead. Like, even if were to come out and sweep, they're still 4 points behind them. You know, it's
hard ground to pick up, especially with Colorado, like rolling the way that they are.
They're rolling, man.
They are rolling.
I feel like they've been rolling like all season. Like I've been hyping up the Eagles like continuously for weeks and weeks and weeks now, and they, like, at first it wasn't like they were a few games behind in games played, and now that they've caught up, they're like, yeah, we're pretty comfortably at the top now. And have you seen Jacob McDonald play? I want to say he's like third in goal scoring in the league. He's a defenseman, and he just doesn't care. He just launches rockets from the blue line, along with Yeri Inola, who had the overtime winner last night to clinch playoffs for the Eagles. Rockets. So this team is just launching rockets from every area of the ice. They're getting superb goaltending from Trent Miner and Adam Scheel. They're locking it down defensively. They're juggernauts offensively. I know I've spent a lot of time in this pod pumping them up. I'm going to continue to do it until they prove me wrong, because
they are the it girl.
Exactly.
They are Sabrina Carpenter and Chappell Roan and Taylor Swift all rolled into one. They are it. They are the moment.
That's some pretty high praise there.
I hate Taylor Swift, but
personal opinions about her music, and
right, people love her. Right.
Yes,
people love her.
I've never really understood the phenomenon, but it happens. So
right, great.
Get another really good one tonight and tomorrow. Abbotsford and San Jose. I like the Abby Canucks again. They're on fire. I think they got the longest winning streak going on right now. Some things got to give, but like they might just come in and smack the kudo around a little bit, because like, I don't know, this team's playing really well, but San Jose's playing really well too. They both have 73 points. You know, Coachella is going in, and I'm just going to say it, they got an easier matchup with the Chicago Wolves. So there's going to be a lot of shifting around here, but you know Coachella is getting points, so you got to get some points here, because those Firebirds are going to be moving up. You got to keep pace.
I like Abby and Kuda because so family vacations usually traditionally are to Walt Disney World every year because I have a very proud Disney adult mother. Their golf course at Disney World, there's a golf course, whatever. Next to it is like the hotel for the veterans, whatever. The hotel is called Shades of Green.
Okay.
The Abby and Kuda matchup is the Shades of Green matchup. You're playing for dominance on Shades of Green.
Of the color green.
Yeah. They're green.
I want to lean towards Abby just because they're playing so well, and that green does look slick on their jerseys.
I know, but there's something so 1990s food court about that San Jose teal. You know, just
Yes.
directly to my veins. Let me just funnel it directly into my nervous system.
Well, they're gonna have to find a way to stop Andrew Podorowski. He's got 8 points in his last 3 games. He's currently pacing the entire league right now. He's got 73 points in 58. Still somehow not managing to find a job in the National, but you know what? I don't think he cares. He's playing some really good hockey. He maybe care a little bit, but
I think he cares a little bit.
He cares a little bit, yeah. But he's playing hockey with the boys. He's he's watching his little ones growing up and getting into hockey themselves. It's man's living a good life. And
we love a king who, even if he does care, doesn't take it out on his team. Even if he does care, even if it does sting him a little bit, he still goes out and he's like, you know what? I get to play professional hockey for a living. I'm living my dream, mostly.
Potts has been to the last 4 Calder Cup finals. He won one in Charlotte, then COVID happened, then he won one in Chicago, and then he lost the last 2 with Coachella Valley.
Do you remember when COVID happened and they just like froze the standings and they were like, congratulations, here's a made up award. Nobody wins the Calder Cup. The Rocket won the division that year.
Do you feel joy about that division title?
No. But I will say, because remember the years prior or whatever, they were still so new because they came in 2018. They were still so new. They had yet to find any kind of footing. That was like the start of them finding their footing. Like the COVID freeze, winning that fake award, they had to make up awards to like give to the teams so they could put banners in the rafters if they wanted to. That was the start of the incremental growth every year for the Rocket.
And now here they are, poised to make a run. Could you poised to make a run at an actual Calder Cup? They're a good spot too. They just got to make sure not to run into the wrong way. Then don't ruin it. Don't ruin it.
Don't ruin it. Don't either.
That's
currently losing 3-1 to a torchless Flyers. Nicolas Deslauriers scored a goal. Nicolas Deslauriers
in the big 2025. That's rough.
We're letting Nicolas Deslauriers score goals on his former team. Yes.
And with that, I think that is another week of Tapped. We got just more coming at you as we continue to cover this playoff race. There's a lot of chaos going on. And just thank you guys so much again for joining us. We're going to keep bringing it to you. And then once the playoff starts, it's going to be even better. So till then, I'm Drew.
I'm exhausted, but you can call me D.
Or Sleepy. And yeah, we'll catch you guys next week.